If you've ever opened your Google Ads account and felt like you just walked into mission control at NASA, you're not alone. Because here's the thing, one of the biggest problems people have with Google Ads isn't that they don't have enough data, it's that they're drowning in the wrong data and they're looking at the right data completely wrong. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the Google Ads metrics that actually matter, which ones are useful and which ones are dangerous and misunderstood. And most importantly, how to use them to make confident decisions instead of just staring at numbers and hoping you're doing something right. This is especially important for beginners, but I see experienced advertisers mess this up all the time. And look, the goal here isn't to memorize a bunch of metrics. It's to understand what these metrics are actually for and when it should actually influence your business decision. If you get that right, managing Google Ads becomes calmer, more predictable, and way less stressful. So let's dive in. And hey, if you find this helpful, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're going deep on Google Ads strategy every week, and I promise you will learn something new each time. So let's talk about one of the most talked about metrics in all of Google Ads, click-through rate, or CTR. So this is your clicks divided by your impressions. CTR is one of those metrics that people either obsess over, like it's the holy grail, or completely dismiss as vanity nonsense. And the truth, it's somewhere in the middle. So what is click-through rate? Simply, it's the percentage of people who see your ad and actually click on it. If 100 people see your ad and 5 click, you've got a 5% click-through rate. Now, CTR absolutely matters, but not for the reason that most people think. CTR is fantastic for understanding how compelling your ad copy is compared to other ads showing for the same searches, and it's really useful for testing. So let me give you an example. Say you're running 2 different headlines. One says affordable plumbing service and the other says emergency plumbing, 30 minutes response. If the second one gets 6% CTR and the first one gets 2% CTR, that's telling you something important. People respond more to urgency and speed promise than they do to price. That's valuable information. You're learning what resonates. You're learning what message works. This is where CTR shines. It's a testing tool. But here's where things get tricky. A high CTR doesn't automatically mean your campaign is performing well from a business perspective. In fact, sometimes a high CTR is actually a warning sign. Let's say you're a high-end kitchen remodel company. Your average project is $50,000 and you write an ad that says free kitchen design consultation, click here, and boom, your CTR shoots up to 12%. Amazing, right? Well, maybe if those clicks are coming from people who can afford a $50,000 remodel and ready to hire someone, then yes, that's great. But if those clicks are coming from people who just want free design ideas or people who think you're going to redesign their kitchen for $500, you've got a problem. The dashboard may look great. The CTR is going through the roof, but your lead quality is terrible. You're burning through money on curiosity clicks from people who just never are going to buy or never going to become customers. This is why CTR is a metric you watch, but not a metric you chase blindly. It's best used for ad copy testing and relevance checks, not as a primary measure of success. So here's an action item for you for CTR. Use it to compare ads against each other within the same campaign. If ad A has a 4% CTR and ad B has a 7% CTR, this means something, but don't celebrate or panic based on the CTR alone. Always ask, are these the right clicks? All right, so let's move into what usually becomes the first truly meaningful metric for most service businesses, cost per acquisition, or as a lot of people call it, cost per lead. This is where things start to feel more real because now you're tying actual spend to actual action. You're not just paying for clicks anymore, you're paying for leads. So the cost per acquisition tells you how much you're paying to generate a lead, a phone call, a form submission, a consultation booking, whatever conversion action matters to your business. For a law firm, it might be a contact form. For a contractor, it might be a phone call. For a SaaS company, it might be a free trial sign up. All right, so let's set up an example here. So let's say you spent $1,000 on Google Ads this week and you've got 20 leads. Your cost per lead is $50. Simple math. This is a very important metric, especially for service companies, because it helps you understand whether your advertising costs are even in the right ballpark. If you're a personal injury attorney and you know that most firms in your market are paying $200 to $500 per lead and you're getting leads for $150, you're doing pretty well. But, and this is huge, this is also where a lot of people stop And that's where the problem begins. Cost per lead is not the ultimate metric. It's an immediate metric. Let me say that again. A lead has no inherent value on its own. A lead only has value in relation to how often it turns into a customer and how much that customer is worth. Here's what I mean. Let's compare two businesses. Business A, cost per lead is $50. Closing rate is 5%, so 1 in 20 people. Average sale is $500. So the cost to acquire one customer is $1,000. Profit per customer after ad cost is negative $500. So you're losing money. Business B, cost per lead is $100. So you're doubling business A. Closing rate is 30%. Nearly 1 in 3 people are closing. Average sale is $2,000. Cost to acquire one customer is $330. Profit per customer after ad spend is $1,667. So look at that. Business A has a lower cost per lead, $50 versus $100, but they're losing money. Business B is paying twice as much per lead, but they're making way more profit. Why? Because their closing rate is higher and their average deal value is higher. The cost per lead looked worse, but the business outcome was way better. This is where understanding your business metrics becomes absolutely critical. If you close one out of every 10 leads, your allowable cost per lead is very different than if you close 1 out of every 3 leads. Two businesses can have the exact same cost per lead and completely different outcomes. One might be printing money, the other might be going bankrupt. So your cost per lead or cost per acquisition is powerful, super powerful, but only when it's paired with real world context. You need to know, what's my closing rate? What's my average customer value? What can I afford to pay for a lead and still be profitable? Your action item here is don't just track cost per lead in Google Ads. Track what happens after the lead comes in. How many turn into real customers? What's the revenue? Because without that context, you're just flying blind. And that naturally brings us to what is often the most important metric overall, return on ad spend, or ROAS. In Google Ads terms, this is conversion value divided by cost. And this metric is a game changer because it takes into account not just that conversions happen, but how much revenue that conversion actually produced. So for e-commerce businesses, this is often very straightforward. Someone buys a product for $100. Google knows the conversion was worth $100. Done. So if your ad spend was $1,000, revenue generated was $4,000, you have a ROAS of 4 to 1. So 400% ROAS. For a service business, it's a bit more complicated, but it's still extremely powerful if you can implement it properly. And we'll talk about how in just a second. ROAS tells you whether your ads are actually making you money, not just generating the activity, not just generating leads, but producing real tangible revenue. This is the metric that allows you to confidently scale because it answers the question, if I spend more, will I likely get more back? If you have consistent, reliable ROAS data, decision making becomes so much easier. If you don't, scaling feels risky and emotional. Now, there are situations where tracking conversion value is pretty simple. Like if you're a consultant and you have one fixed price package, every client pays $500. You tell Google Ads that every lead is worth $500 and boom, you're tracking now ROAS data. But there's also a situation where it's more complex. Maybe you're a contractor and you do everything from small bathroom repairs for $1,000 to whole house renovations for, tens of thousands of dollars. And that's a big range. And that's where offline conversions becomes incredibly important. Offline conversions allow you to bring real revenue data back into Google Ads after the fact, once a lead has turned into a sale. So here's how it works. Someone clicks your ad, fills out a form. Now Google knows that conversion happened, but at that moment, Google doesn't know if the lead is going to spend $1,000 or $100,000. 2 weeks later, you close the deal. It's a $50,000 project. You send that data back to Google Ads through offline conversion tracking. Now Google knows, oh, that click from that keyword led to $50,000 in revenue. And it starts to optimize for that, not just for the leads, not just for the form fills, but for actual revenue. Conceptually, this is one of the most important and most powerful things you can do because you're no longer asking Google to optimize for leads and hoping they turn into good customers. You're asking it to optimize for big outcomes. You're asking it to optimize for actual real revenue. You don't need to master this right away, But understanding that this exists helps you to think more clearly about what success actually means in your account. Start simple, track conversions, then when you're ready, level up to tracking conversion value. That's when things can get really interesting. All right, so next up, we have a metric that I think is massively underappreciated, search impression share. This metric tells you how much of the available demand you're actually capturing. In simple terms, it answers the question, when people search for things I'm targeting, how often do I show up? And this is incredibly important because it acts like a gas pedal for your account. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're running Google Ads for a dental practice. You're targeting keywords like dentist near me, emergency dental care, teeth cleaning, all that stuff. And your cost per lead is solid. You're at $60 a lead, and you know you can afford that. Your ROAS is good, everything's working. But then you look at your search impression share, and it's at 35%. That means you're only showing up for about a third of the available searches. 2/3 of the time when someone searches for what you do, they're not even seeing your ad. That's huge. That usually means that there's room to scale. You could increase your budget, raise your bids a little, expand your keywords, and you'd probably get more of that demand without wrecking your performance. On the flip side, let's say your impression share is already at 92%. You're showing up for almost every relevant search. That's cool. But now if you just try to scale by throwing money at it, you're not going to magically create more demand. There just isn't any more demand for these keywords that you're already targeting. You're essentially maxed out. At that point, to grow, you'd need to expand into different keywords, new services, maybe new locations, and even new campaigns. You can't just turn up the dial anymore. There's really no dial to turn anymore. You've maxed it out. Now, closely tied to search impression share, there's also two other metrics. There's search lost impression share due to budget and search lost impression share due to rank. These two metrics tell you why you're missing impressions. If you're losing a lot of impression share due to budget, that means Google wants to show your ad more often, but you're capped by how much you're willing to spend. It's literally saying, hey, I could show your ad right now, but you don't have the budget for it. If performance is strong, this is often a signal that increasing the budget makes sense. If you're losing a lot of search impression share due to rank, that usually means that your bids, your quality score, or your overall relevance just isn't competitive enough. And that often means that you're showing up lower on the page, or you're only showing for the less desirable, less competitive searches. This is where people unknowingly get the leftover traffic, and leftover traffic tends to be lower quality. Understanding the difference between these two is really important because one tells you that you have a money problem, you need more budget. The other one tells you that you have a competitive problem. You need better ads, better landing pages, or more aggressive bids. So here's the action item. Check your search impression share. If it's below 50% and you're happy with the performance metrics, you probably have room to grow. If it's above 80%, you're capturing most of the demand and growth needs to come from somewhere else. All right, so we've covered the big ones. Now let's talk about some supporting metrics. These are important, but they're best understood in context, not in isolation. So first up, cost per click, or CPC. People fixate on this one. And look, it's worth understanding, but you shouldn't obsess over it. Here's the thing, a low cost per click isn't inherently a good thing. And a high cost per click isn't inherently a bad thing. What matters is what that click produces. So here's two scenarios. You have a cost per click of $1, conversion rate of 1%, cost per lead of $100. And in scenario B, you have a cost per click of $10, conversion rate of 15%, and cost per lead of $67. So look at that. Scenario A has a way lower cost per click, $1 versus $10. But the cost per lead is actually higher because the conversion rate is terrible. Scenario B is paying 10 times more per click, but getting better leads at a lower cost overall. In many industries, the most expensive clicks are expensive because they represent high commercial intent. Paying $10 for a click that turns into a $1,000 job is very different than paying $1 for a click that never converts. So CPC is best viewed as a supporting metric. It interacts with your conversion rate and your cost per acquisition. It's part of the equation, not the goal. Next is quality score, another metric that often is misunderstood. Quality score is Google's way of telling you how well your landing page aligns with what users are searching for. It's rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, it's not necessarily a metric you just optimize directly. You don't wake up and say, well, today I'm going to improve my quality score and we're going to just change that from a 1 to a 10. It's more of a diagnostic tool. If you see low quality scores like 3s, 4s, 5s, that's Google hinting that something isn't matching well. Maybe your ad copy isn't relevant enough to the keyword. Maybe your landing page doesn't clearly address the search intent. Maybe your keywords are too broad. Improving quality score can reduce costs and improve performance, but it's a byproduct of doing fundamentals well. Good keyword targeting, relevant ad copy, strong landing pages. It's not a standalone objective, it's feedback. So now let's talk about conversion rate. This tells you how efficiently your traffic is turning into conversions. A low conversion rate often indicates a landing page problem. Maybe there's a mismatch between what the keyword promised and what the page delivers. Maybe the offer is weak. Maybe the page is just poorly designed. A high conversion rate usually means the page is doing a good job of meeting the expectations. But even here, context matters. A very high conversion rate on low quality traffic can still be a problem if the conversions don't turn into paying customers. So again, metrics need to be viewed together, not in isolation. And finally, absolute top of page rate and top of page rate. These help you understand where your ads are showing in the search results. Being at the very top can be important for high intent searches, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes paying less and showing slightly lower still produces good results. The key is understanding whether your position aligns with your goals and your economics. If you're a premium brand, maybe you need to be at the top. If you're competing on value, maybe position 3 is just fine. All right, so here's a big takeaway from all of this. No single metric tells the full story. Metrics work in groups. CTR helps you understand ad copy. Conversion rate helps you understand landing pages. Cost per acquisition helps you understand lead efficiency. ROAS helps you understand profitability, and impression share helps you understand scale. Quality score helps you diagnose relevance issues. When you know what each metric is for, you stop reacting emotionally to normal fluctuations and you start making deliberate, confident decisions. If you want a simple way to think about it, ask yourself these 4 questions. Which metric tells me whether my ads are attractive? That's CTR. Which metric tells me whether they're converting? That's conversion rate. Which metric tells me whether they're profitable? That's going to be ROAS or CPA. Which metric tells me whether I can grow? That's search impression share. If you can answer those 4 questions, you're already ahead of most advertisers. So the reason this matters so much in 2026 is because Google Ads is increasingly automated. The system is making more decisions for you, which keywords to show for, how much to bid, when to show your ads. Your job isn't to micromanage every single number anymore as a Google Ads manager. Your job is to feed the system the right signals, good conversions, tracking, accurate conversion values, smart campaign structure, and then interpret those results correctly. When you do that, Google Ads becomes a tool that supports your business instead of something that you constantly fight with. And if you want to go deeper on how to connect these metrics to real business outcomes, especially through better tracking and conversion setup, that's exactly what we're going to keep building on in future videos. Now, before you go, if you want to put this into practice right now, I've created a completely free Google Ads checklist. You can grab it at focusmoreleads.com. It's designed to help you find waste in your account in a quick and organized way. Just walk through the checklist and you'll know exactly where your account might be leaking money or missing opportunities. Again, that's focusmoreleads.com. It's completely free and should help you out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.